If you look in the workbook that I developed, there's 10 basic steps of the planning process. And the first and always step is you start and you identify what's working and not working. Where are we now, right? You can't set a course or a direction unless you identify where you are at the current time. So that can be a whole enterprise in and of itself, is to take the time to diagnose where you are. Then once you get agreement on that, then you can begin to set a course for where you want to go and adjust the things that are working or not working. Okay, and then what I used to preach, and I still firmly believe, is that the final element of the process is a level of accountability. People have got to do what they say they're going to do. They said, the old definition of insanity was doing things over and over again and expecting different results. I think the definition of insanity is, not being accountable to yourself. Is people who set goals, okay, and then for themselves and then don't accomplish them are insane.
Why are they insane?
Well, because they make commitments to themselves and then don't keep them, right? And why would you do that? But that's a fairly common pattern of behavior, is to, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to do all these things, and then they don't do it. Well, as I used to say in my seminars, if I could figure that out, I'd be worth $1 billion. If you could get people to make their own commitments, because I saw time and time again, either at an organizational level or at an individual level, people make commitments to themselves and then ignore them.
So people are people that come into the business world as the owner, the employee, the manager, and if they're not doing that at home and establishing that, do they do it at work, or can someone be good at work at doing that and not at home? Or do you think it carries through?
I don't see how. I think it's a consistent pattern. Learning that, why make a commitment to myself unless I fully intend to keep it? And then, as I said before, all the things that go along with it in terms of getting the tools and resources and knowledge and empowerment, and that needs to go along with it, because I'm not suggesting that somebody can do it all by themselves. What they need is the empowerment, and that plays right into the idea of the authority to decide and act. Okay, I've got to. But when it comes to yourself, you have the authority to decide and act, completely within yourself. You may not have the resources, but you certainly have the ability to, articulate and make commitments to yourself and keep them.
Well, it sounds to me that this is one of the key cornerstones of what you think it takes to have a successful company.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
At every level.
I will say that the most successful companies I work with were the ones that were basically saying, here's what we're trying to accomplish, here's our direction, and then they set out to do them. I tell the story where I had one customer who I basically started working with on the construction crews, who 20 years later he had founded a company that was incredibly successful and profitable and made a lot of money. And one of the things he said to me is, look, we set this list of goals during the planning process and we accomplished every one of them. Okay? And it's not surprising that we would have been successful. And I don't dismiss the fact there's also a lot of luck associated with running a business. But that's where adjusting and adaptability comes in as well. I was interested, yesterday I went to the paint store, and I had worked for a paintbrush manufacturing company in Portland, Oregon. You'd recognize the name if I said it. And when I was there, I designed their very first cost accounting system. Right? They had no automation prior to that in the manufacturing area. And so I studied how paintbrushes, they call them tools, you never call them a paintbrush. Painting tools were made, and in those days the best tools of the trade were made from hog bristles. Well, the hogs came from China, and they had bristles about that long, and they were handmade, and they were beautiful instruments. They were beautiful tools, they called them. I was at the paint store yesterday and noticed that there is no such thing as a natural bristle paintbrush anymore. It's all nylon, right? So here's an example of a company that built up a complete business around processing this hog hair into paintbrushes, who now is using synthetic material and competing with probably Chinese companies were making synthetic paintbrushes. In fact, it was funny, the owner would never let Chinese visitors inside the manufacturing plant. He would take them to the offices and he'd show them around and then take them out to lunch and stuff like that. But he would never let them in, because everybody's experience with the Chinese were that if you let the business in and watch your manufacturing process, that 6 months later it would be duplicated in Beijing or some other place. So the point is that it's not enough just to have a direction and an idea, that you have to make the adjustments as you go and adapt. There's been, in my business career, there's been phenomenal changes in business technology, and the companies that are able to utilize it and adapt to it are the ones that I think are the most successful.